My name is Jonathan. I'm 42 years old. I have social anxiety disorder. I'm going to try and speak loud enough to be heard on this video. I just recently found out about what was wrong with me a couple of months ago, in April, maybe May, beginning of May, maybe somewhere around there in 2017. I've gone through my whole life knowing that something was wrong, but just not knowing what it was, and knowing that I just couldn't do anything about it at a certain point in my life. It didn't take long. And I've lived with it for a long time. The first time I can remember feeling it or having those feelings with anxiety and all that stuff, not the anxiety, I've had that before this, but the social anxiety part of it, the being around other people and getting anxiety and getting scared and feeling that way, was my first day of kindergarten. It was terrorizing. It was terrible. It was awful. It was the worst thing I've ever felt. I couldn't speak. I couldn't say anything in class there. I couldn't do anything. And I went that way throughout my schooling. I couldn't say anything, couldn't speak up in class, couldn't ask the teacher for help for anything, and that's the way it was. With this video, basically, I want to just give an introduction to myself, how I feel right now, where I'm at, what I'm going to be doing, and a process that I'm putting together to help overcome social anxiety disorder. There's a few things I'm doing. Cognitive behavioral therapy is part of it. So I'm doing that. I've been going to therapy, and it's kind of just the CBT part of it is just kind of now starting. I'm going through a workbook there. It's called the Shyness and Social Anxiety Workbook. I don't know how well it works or anything. I know it talks about changing the way I think and feel about things, or not feel, but the way I think about situations and anxious thoughts and stuff like that. It took a while to even realize what it was that I was thinking in these situations when I get around people, because I've been doing it automatically for so long. So I finally got an idea of what's going on there. So now I'm ready to put some things to test, such as exposure and trying to think about what I'm thinking about that's giving me anxiety at the same time. Doing that and practicing that takes a lot of practice, I guess. It's like trying to do two different things at the same time that are completely different. So yeah, basically an introduction here. I'm just kind of getting started with trying to change this social anxiety disorder, or at least whatever, change something about it. And I've just found out about it at the end of April, beginning of May of 2017, this year. So it's all fairly new to me, knowing what's wrong. Although there's been other things that have been wrong in my life, but it's come from having that disorder, like pathological lying. I started that. I started lying about things when I was 7 or 8 years old. And I've done it all my life, and so often that I don't even realize sometimes that I do it. I sometimes catch myself either in the middle or after I'm done, and then have to revert back and think, nope, that wasn't right. That's how automatic I do that. But the first time remembering lying or making up a story about something, I was 7 or 8. The place I was living at the time, I had turned 8 there. And so I had to be 7 or 8. So that happened. So basically with these videos, I want to do the process of going from what I am now, which is a lot of anxiety, a lot of feeling embarrassment, just feeling awful when I get around people. More so when I have to even try to talk to them. So that's how I am now. I want to go from that to being able to better manage it, or whatever I can do with it. Get rid of it would be the ultimate goal. But being able to manage it in such a way that I'm a little more comfortable, or even just better in situations, and with less anxiety or no anxiety at all, that would be great. But I want to record and document the process of that, going from this, what I am now, to what I can potentially be by following this, following what I feel are paths to overcoming it, or better dealing with it, better coping strategies. I don't know. But yeah, so and yeah, so I'm going to be exposing myself. Actually, making this video is really exposing myself at this point. Especially opening up and saying that part about the pathological lying, or at least that's what I'm calling it, but it's lying that started at a young age that never stopped. It got worse and worse, and got on a daily basis probably. I lied about something or other on a daily basis. Just admitting that and just saying that out loud is a very difficult thing. But recognizing that I do that, and that I've done that all my life, basically, helps in recognizing that I need to change that and not do that. It's become such a habit, but I've got to break that habit. I've got to get rid of it. I've got to stop it. Just like I have to stop the thoughts that I have when I get around people that are causing me to have the anxiety. I've got to catch those thoughts, stop them, change those thoughts, and think about it more realistically in a different way. I got to do the same thing with the lying. I've got to catch that I'm about to lie, or going to lie, or have lied, and reverse that and either say that I've lied, or hopefully catch it before I even lie. And so, I've got a lot of things to work on. But all this stuff is because of the social anxiety disorder. I've got habits, addictions that I'm pretty much at this point have gotten rid of. It took a while. It took over a month to stop them all and get them done. But it's working, and I'm not really thinking about them too much at this point. A lot of my addictions were used for avoidance, but like alcohol was used primarily constantly for avoidance. That's for another story, and that's a story about my addictions, and that's just one of them. But it's so, that's where I'm at, and so that's what I'm gonna do. Document this process. I want to talk about a certain subject each time I make a video. So if I want to talk about lying, or talk about social anxiety disorder, or talk about something that has a subject or a topic, then I want to talk about that topic, but at the same time I want to talk about kind of my history in my life and how I got to where I am now and what's going on. So throughout all this social anxiety disorder and all this crap that I've brought on myself and given to everybody else that's ever known me, which hasn't been a lot of people. I managed to get married and have a family with kids, and managed to stay married and stay with the same person for a long time, and I'm currently still with the same person, which is amazing, and it took a lot of hard work. I lived a way that she never even knew that I lived by drinking almost every day pretty much, when she thought I was not drinking. Just so I could go out and do everyday things that I needed to do. So I could try to get to work, or try to do something that had needed to be done. I had to drink first, and she didn't know that. She didn't know anything about how I felt when I got around people, how I felt around her, even though I knew her for quite some time, how I felt around anybody, how I'm explaining how I feel now, and how I'm admitting these things. She didn't find out about that, but when I found out about that, I told her. When I found out it was social anxiety disorder, I told her everything, how I felt, what's gone on my whole life. I told her everything. I had to. Finding out what was wrong changed a lot of things. It made it so I had something to hold on to and look at and study and figure out what was wrong and why it's happening and that kind of thing. And it allowed me to come to a decision to either keep going and doing what I'm doing, or, since I know what's wrong now, change that in a way that hopefully I get more comfortable with being that way and deal with it better. But that's what I'm choosing to do, is to change these things. And it feels like I've got to change everything, because I've never known anything of what I want to do or anything. I've always done something that other people are doing, because I feel like if I can fit in somehow with other people, I'll be able to talk to them and socialize and get along and make friends. But that doesn't work. That doesn't work at all. It backfires, and it just gives me nothing. then I start over. Jobs are the same way. I get to a job, I'm excited to start, but then it just all snowballs from day one. I've got to socialize with my coworkers. I've got to socialize in some way or another with my boss. After a couple months, it's all over with and I have to leave. And I've done that with every job that I've ever had, including my first one at age 16. When I thought, this is so awesome, I've got my first job, I'm going to save money, I'm going to move out when I'm 18, I'm going to do this and that, I'm going to be set. I think I lasted at that job maybe 2 weeks before I caved in and couldn't take it anymore, because everything was too intense. Everything that I ever thought of was the worst that could ever happen. The social anxiety was intense at that point, and so I walked away from that job. So anyways, I don't want to talk about my whole life story at this point. I'm going to save that over time in videos, because I'm still discovering my life story, because I'm thinking about it for the first time in probably my life. And I've suffered depression, and now I'm realizing I've had that depression for quite some time before I met my wife, for a long time. It's been years. It's come and gone in different phases, and finally it caught up to me so bad that the physical symptoms got so intense that I was gone for a while. I was extremely in a state of depression but that depression, that state, the physical symptoms, what happened to me, the way I thought, the way I felt at that time, and this was just recently, a couple of months ago, had to happen. Because if I never would have felt like that, I never would have thought to say anything about the social anxiety disorder. Even though at the time I didn't know what it was, I was still feeling I had to say how I felt. But then when I found out what it was, by chance, then I even had a more desire, and I knew that I had to stay depressed to feel that I had to say that. And I stayed depressed long enough to let it out. And when I let that out, all the depression except for the physical symptoms lifted. Physical symptoms took a while. They're still with me right now. The memory is still an issue to a point. It's gotten extremely better than it was. But it is what it is right now, and I'm able to function and work a little bit at my job without any difficulties, which is great. So of course I've never had a career. I've gone to school to try and do different things, but I've always tried to take classes that I don't have to participate in. And so I've done everything and anything that I could have imagined taking classes. I've got so many credits that I can't get financial aid anymore. No more student loans. And I still don't know what I'm doing with it. I do know that I want to get my bachelor's degree. No matter what it's in, I want to get it. I know that for certain. And I will. But so yeah, I'm gonna document the progress and the process of me working on social anxiety disorder, how I'm dealing with it, and what's going on in my life with it. There's another book that I read, that I'm reading right now. I was introduced to Carl Jung. I read a lot of his stuff. That's really helping me out a lot right now. It's great for me to read that. It's helping. I read a book called The Shadow's Gift. I got that reference suggestion from watching a Johnny Burba video. I can't remember what the video was called, but he mentioned that book, and so I got that book, and that introduced me to Jung. And from there I got his analytical psychology book, and I read that for the most part. And then from there I read another book by the author of The Shadow's Gift, which is an introduction to, or a beginner's guide to, Jungian psychology, which is basically the process of individuation, which is the process of becoming what you're supposed to be in life. And so that's a pretty good read for me too. And I'm working on this, and I'm going to have to work every day, and I'm going to start exposing myself. One thing I've done is I need to make a list of all my avoidance behaviors. So self-checkout at the store, I've stopped going to self-checkout a couple of days ago. I go just to the regular line with the cashier, unless I need to go to self-checkout. Like today with my wife at the store, we went in quickly, we went to self-checkout and left. That's okay for me. I don't feel like I'm abandoning what my mission is as far as not going to self-checkout anymore. If it's convenient at the time, I'll go to it. But if I'm not pressed for time, or I've got time or whatever, I will go to a cashier and try and speak with that cashier about anything, about the day, about something. And that is a goal I have. So, I'll talk about that, but that's one avoidance thing that I'm cutting out. And I just got to slowly start these avoidances out, and then start exposing myself and thinking about what's going on and catching my thoughts and changing them. And yeah, a lot of work, but it's a process, and it'll be a progress worth looking at for me in the long run. So I can look back and say, hey, wow, that's what it was like, and now this is what it's like. If that change happens, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going to be in the future. I have no idea. I can't predict that. But I do know that I have a desire to change my behavior in this social anxiety disorder. I have a desire to change it. I need to change it. I want just every way, anything, feeling in me says I need to change it. Which means kind of discovering who it is I really am, what I really want to do. Getting uncomfortable for a while, inducing anxiety, all these things that I'm going to be going through. Trying to work at the same time. But work induces anxiety, so I can use that as practice and hopefully lessen that anxiety or get rid of that anxiety altogether. And if I can do that, that would be amazing as well. So I'm just going to be working hard at it and reading books on psychology, reading the social anxiety workbook and working through it and really practicing it, going out for an hour or two every day, exposing myself, making a fool of myself when I have to, when it's appropriate, upsetting people, confronting people in ways that I've never been able to before. All these exposures, getting on this, in front of this camera and talking like I'm talking to somebody out there, is exposing myself, and I'm saying the things I'm saying about myself, how I feel, is very difficult, because the way I've always felt in my life is if somebody discovered how I really felt inside, how I get this anxiety, how I just want to curl up and run away and get away from you people, and how embarrassed I am around you, and how awful I feel to be around you. If you really knew how that, and then at the same time, if I'm asked something and I have to speak to them, you knew how I felt like that, that'd be the end of the world. I'd have to run away right then and there, and I could never go back to whoever you were. I could never face you again. So now here I am in front of a camera saying this is how I feel, because I know what's wrong, and now I can say how I feel, because I know that it's not just, I mean, it is the way I am, but there's a reason I'm that way. And I want to do something about it. And exposing myself is part of it, and so here I am. And so, and social anxiety disorder is not very popular on YouTube anyway, so if anybody watches it, it's not going to be very many people. But if one person watches it, I will probably get anxiety very bad. I can feel it. It's just one of those things, because I know that somebody saw it, and they saw me for what I am, for who I am, not for what I'm going to become yet, but I'm being vulnerable here. I feel vulnerable because I'm exposing myself in ways I've never ever exposed myself in my life. With my parents, with my family, nobody. Except my wife. I've already gone through the exposure with her, telling her everything about how I feel, and about everything about the lying all the time. But she knew all that already, but I admitted it and confirmed it for her. And I think that was a good start to getting through this process that I'm documenting here. So anyways, I'll be recording another video very soon, and I'll have a specific topic,